The fog rolls in from the North Atlantic like a living thing, thick and cold, wrapping itself around the ancient stones of Ingvellir with the kind of intimacy that comes only from centuries of familiarity. This is Iceland's most sacred ground, where Vikings once gathered to settle disputes, where the world's oldest parliament first convened in the year 930, where the very earth itself seems to remember every word spoken, every judgment rendered, every secret buried beneath its volcanic soil. It's October now, and the tourist season has faded like summer light, leaving only the howling wind and the skeletal remains of wooden viewing platforms that creak in protest against the approaching winter. But on this particular October evening, 15 people have gathered here for reasons that have nothing to do with history or tourism, and everything to do with money, power, and the dangerous intersection where the two collide. The Norwegian group, they call themselves Northern Lights Group in English, though there's nothing illuminating about their business practices. They're tech moguls and venture capitalists, cryptocurrency pioneers, and artificial intelligence developers, the kind of people who speak in acronyms and measure their worth in billions rather than millions. They've rented the entire Ingvellir National Park for 3 days, pulled strings at the highest levels of government, paid obscene amounts of money for the privilege of holding their annual strategy summit in complete isolation. The park rangers have been sent home. The visitor centers are locked and dark. Even the scientists who usually monitor the seismic activity along the mid-Atlantic ridge have been temporarily relocated. For 72 hours, these 15 people will be completely alone in one of the most geologically significant and historically important locations on Earth. The retreat center they've chosen sits on the western edge of the Rift Valley, a modern structure of glass and dark wood that somehow manages to look both out of place and perfectly suited to its surroundings. Floor-to-ceiling windows offer panoramic views of the plain where Iceland's chieftains once assembled, where tectonic plates are slowly, inexorably pulling apart at the rate of 2 centimeters per year, creating new Earth even as they tear the old apart. The symbolism isn't lost on anyone. The Norwegian group is in the business of creative destruction. After all, disrupting old systems, building new empires on the ruins of what came before. Magnus Eriksson is the first to arrive, which surprises no one who knows him. The founder and CEO of Quantum Leap Technologies, Magnus built his fortune on predictive algorithms and behavioral modification software, the kind of invisible architecture that shapes how billions of people interact with their devices, their data, their very thoughts. He's 43 but looks older, the kind of exhaustion that comes not from lack of sleep, but from carrying too many secrets. His silver-streaked hair is pulled back in a neat ponytail, and his steel-rimmed glasses reflect the fading daylight as he stands at the window, watching the others arrive one by one. Next comes Astrid Thorsdottir, Magnus' co-founder and the public face of Quantum Leap. Where Magnus is all sharp angles and intensity, Astrid is warmth and charm, the kind of person who can make you feel like you're the only one in the room, even when you're surrounded by hundreds. She's built an empire on that talent, turned it into a personal brand worth hundreds of millions. But those who know her well, who've seen behind the carefully constructed facade, know that Astrid's warmth is as calculated as any algorithm, deployed strategically to achieve specific outcomes. Henrik Johansson arrives in a helicopter, because of course he does. The Norwegian Bitcoin billionaire made his first million before he turned 25, his first billion before 30, and now at 37, he moves through the world with the supreme confidence of someone who's never encountered a problem that couldn't be solved with enough money. His cryptocurrency exchange, Nordic Coin, processes billions in transactions daily, operating in the gray spaces between regulation and lawlessness that make governments nervous and investors ecstatic. The others file in over the next hour. Sophia Chun, the AI ethicist whose consultancy gives these companies the veneer of responsibility they need to avoid regulatory scrutiny. Dr. Lars Anderson, the neuroscientist whose research into brain-computer interfaces pushed ethical boundaries so far they snapped. Ingrid Svensson, the corporate lawyer who's made a career out of finding loopholes in international law. Thomas Berg, the marketing genius who can make surveillance capitalism look like personal empowerment. Each of them brilliant, each of them ruthless, each of them bound together by their participation in projects that exist in the shadows of their public-facing businesses. The last to arrive is perhaps the most interesting. Elias Holm isn't a tech entrepreneur or an investor. He's a historian, a professor at the University of Reykjavik who specializes in medieval Icelandic law and the Thing assemblies. He's been hired as a consultant, or so everyone has been told, to give a presentation about the historical significance of their location, to add some cultural context to their business discussions. But Elias knows more than history. Elias knows secrets. And as he steps out of his weather-beaten Land Rover and looks up at the modern retreat center with its gleaming windows and architectural arrogance, he carries with him a leather satchel containing documents that could destroy every person inside. The first evening passes according to plan. There's a catered dinner of Icelandic lamb and locally caught fish, wine from France, whiskey from Scotland, coffee from beans that probably cost more per pound than most people earn in a week. The conversation is carefully calibrated, friendly but not too familiar, professional but not stuffy. These are people who've spent years perfecting the art of the power dinner, who know exactly how to project success without seeming to try. But underneath the pleasant surface, tensions simmer. Magnus and Astrid haven't spoken directly to each other in 6 months, communicating only through lawyers and intermediaries. Henrik owes several of them significant amounts of money from deals that went sideways. Sophia has been quietly gathering evidence of ethical violations, insurance against the day she might need leverage. And Elias, sitting at the far end of the table, watches them all with the patient attention of a man who's spent his career studying how societies collapse from within. After dinner, they gather in the main conference room, a space dominated by a massive table of black volcanic stone and those ever-present windows looking out onto the darkening plain. Magnus takes his position at the head of the table, exactly where he's always been most comfortable, in control. He begins to speak about the year ahead, about expansion plans and new markets, about an acquisition he's planning that will cement Quantum Leap's dominance in the behavioral prediction space. But 10 minutes into his presentation, Elias interrupts him. "Before we discuss the future," Elias says, his voice quiet but carrying an authority that comes from years spent lecturing to inattentive students, "perhaps we should address the past." The room goes silent. Magnus' jaw tightens. "That's not on the agenda." No, Elias agrees, it's not. But then, murder rarely makes it onto official agendas. The word hangs in the air like smoke. Murder. Several people shift uncomfortably. Henrik laughs, but it's forced, a social reflex rather than genuine amusement. Astrid's smile doesn't waver, but her eyes sharpen, focusing on Elias with predatory intensity. "That's quite an accusation," she says smoothly. "Care to elaborate?" Elias opens his satchel and removes a folder, placing it on the volcanic stone table with deliberate precision. 3 years ago, he begins, a programmer named Christian Sigurdsson died in what was officially ruled an accident. He fell from the balcony of his apartment in Reykjavik. The police investigation concluded he'd been drinking, that he'd leaned too far over the railing, that it was a tragic but straightforward case of accidental death. "I remember that," Sophia says carefully. "Christian worked for Quantum Leap. It was very sad." "It was murder," Elias states flatly. Christian had discovered something about the core Quantum Leap algorithm, something that would have destroyed the company if it became public. He was preparing to go to the press. 2 days before his scheduled meeting with a journalist from The Guardian, he ended up dead. Magnus stands abruptly, his chair scraping against the polished floor. "This is absurd. We're not going to sit here and listen to wild conspiracy theories from someone we barely know." "Sit down, Magnus," Astrid says softly, and something in her tone makes him comply. She turns to Elias, her expression unreadable. "You said you have evidence?" "I have Christian's research. I have his communications with the journalist. I have documentation showing that the Quantum Leap algorithm doesn't just predict behavior, it manipulates it. It subtly alters the information people see, the choices they're offered, in ways that lead them to make decisions they wouldn't otherwise make. It's not just surveillance capitalism. It's mind control deployed at a scale that affects hundreds of millions of people." and Christian was going to expose it. The room erupts. Denials, accusations, defensive posturing. But underneath the chaos, there's something else. Fear. Because Elias isn't wrong, and several people in this room know it. The quantum leap algorithm is the company's crown jewel, but it's also its greatest liability. If regulators understood what it actually does, the company would be dismantled, its executives potentially facing criminal charges. The European Union alone would impose fines in the hundreds of billions. Henrik tries to defuse the situation with humor. Even if this were true, which I'm not saying it is, what does it have to do with us? We're investors and partners, not murderers. Aren't you? Elias's gaze sweeps the room. Everyone here benefited from Christian's death. The algorithm remained secret. Quantum Leap continued to grow. Your investments multiplied. You're all complicit, whether you pulled the trigger or simply enjoyed the profits. There was no trigger to pull, Magnus says coldly. Christian's death was an accident. Was it? Elias reaches into his satchel again and pulls out a photograph, sliding it across the table. This is from a security camera of the building across the street from Christian's apartment. It was taken 30 minutes before he fell. Notice anyone familiar? The photograph is grainy, taken at night, but it's clear enough. A figure entering Christian's building, hood pulled up against the rain, but the profile visible in a moment when they looked up at the camera. The resemblance to Thomas Berg is unmistakable. Thomas goes pale. That's not me. Someone could have faked that. Could they? Elias asks mildly. Because there's also this. Another photograph. This one showing the same hooded figure leaving the building, this time caught more clearly by a different angle. It's definitely Thomas, no question. The atmosphere in the room shifts from uncomfortable to dangerous. Thomas looks around at his colleagues, seeing suspicion in their eyes, watching their mental calculations. If Thomas killed Christian, what else might he be capable of? What secrets might he know? What leverage might he have? I was never there, Thomas says desperately. I've never been to Christian's apartment. This is a setup. Someone's trying to frame me. Who? Astrid asks, and her voice is like ice. Who will want to frame you, Thomas? Before he can answer, the lights go out. The retreat center is suddenly completely dark. The kind of darkness that only exists far from cities, where there's no ambient light to soften the edges, where the night presses in like a physical force. Someone screams. There's the sound of chairs scraping, people moving in the darkness, confused voices calling out. Magnus shouts for everyone to stay calm, to stay where they are, but panic doesn't respond to commands. The backup generators kick in after 30 seconds, but it feels like hours. Emergency lights illuminate the room with a harsh white glow that makes everyone look like ghosts. And that's when they notice it. The folder Elias placed on the table is gone. Elias himself is standing by the window, looking out into the darkness with an expression that might be satisfaction or might be fear. Someone doesn't want this information shared, he observes. Who cut the power? Ingrid demands. She's the lawyer, trained to identify problems and assign blame. Henrik pulls out his phone, taps at the screen, frowns. No signal. I had full bars 10 minutes ago. Others check their devices. Same result. No cellular service, no Wi-Fi, no connection to the outside world. They're isolated, truly alone in this ancient place with its dark history and darker present. Dr. Lars Anderson, the neuroscientist, moves to the main door and tries the handle. Locked. He tries the electronic override. Nothing. We're trapped, he says, and despite his scientific training, his voice carries an edge of panic. Magnus takes control because that's what he does. Obviously someone planned this. Someone wants us frightened, wants us turning on each other. We need to stay calm and figure out what's happening. What's happening, Astrid says, is that someone in this room is a murderer, and now we're locked in here with them. The accusation hangs heavy. Everyone looks at everyone else with new suspicion. Thomas, caught in the photographs, but also Magnus, who had the most to lose from Christian's revelations. Astrid, who's been quietly consolidating power within Quantum Leap. Henrik, whose cryptocurrency empire is built on foundations that wouldn't survive serious scrutiny. Any of them could have killed Christian. Any of them might kill again. They search the building, looking for whoever cut the power, looking for the missing folder, looking for answers. But the retreat center is eerily empty. The kitchen staff who prepared dinner are gone, though no one remembers seeing them leave. The building's manager, who was supposed to be available throughout their stay, is nowhere to be found. It's as if they've been spirited away, leaving only the 15 members of the Norwalges group in this glass and wood cage. In the security office, they find something disturbing. The surveillance system has been disabled, but not recently. According to the logs, it was shut down 2 days ago, long before any of them arrived. Someone planned this carefully, knew exactly how to isolate them, how to create the perfect pressure cooker of fear and suspicion. They return to the conference room because it's the largest space, because being together feels safer than being separated, though whether that's true is anyone's guess. Magnus tries to organize them, to create some kind of order from the chaos. He proposes they take turns standing watch, that they stick together in groups, that they systematically search for a way out. But his authority is crumbling. These are people who've spent their careers resisting control, exploiting systems, finding the cracks in every structure. They're not going to suddenly become obedient just because circumstances have turned strange. Elias has been watching all of this with that same patient, analytical expression. Finally, he speaks. You're approaching this wrong. You're treating it as a crisis to be managed. But this isn't a crisis. It's a judgment. A judgment. Sophia's voice is sharp. What are you talking about? We're at Ingvellir, Elias explains, gesturing out the window to the dark plain beyond. Do you know what happened here, really? The thing wasn't just a parliament. It was a court. People came here to have their disputes resolved, their crimes judged. And the judgments were brutal. Outlawry, execution, exile. Justice wasn't abstract. It was immediate and often fatal. This is the 21st century, Henrik snaps. We're not living in a Viking saga, aren't we? Elias asks. Think about what you've built. These algorithms that control information, that manipulate behavior, that strip away privacy and autonomy. You've created systems of power that the Vikings couldn't have imagined. And you've done it without accountability, without oversight, without consequences. Maybe it's time for judgment. The implication is clear, and it sends a chill through the room. Someone has brought them here, not for a business retreat, but for a reckoning. Thomas is pacing, growing more agitated. This is insane. Those photographs are fake. I never killed anyone. I don't even know how to kill someone. I do marketing, for God's sake. You do psychological manipulation, Astrid corrects coldly. You've spent 20 years figuring out how to make people do things they don't want to do. That's not so different from killing, is it? Just a matter of degree. You want to talk? Thomas shoots back. How many lives have been destroyed by Quantum Leap? How many people have been manipulated, exploited, driven to bankruptcy or suicide by the systems you've built? That's business, Astrid says. Not murder. Is there a difference? The philosophical debate might have continued, might have devolved into more accusations and recriminations, but then they hear it. A sound from somewhere else in the building. A crash, like something heavy falling. Everyone freezes. Magnus grabs one of the ornamental pieces from a side table, a weighty sculpture of black rock. It's not much of a weapon, but it's something. Everyone stay here, he orders. Like hell, Henrik says, following him. Several others join them, moving as a group toward the sound. Only Elias remains in the conference room, and Sophia, who seems frozen with fear. They trace the sound to one of the guest rooms on the second floor. The door is ajar, and the room beyond is dark. Magnus pushes the door open slowly, reaching for the light switch. When the lights come on, they see what made the noise. The room has been ransacked. Furniture overturned, drawers pulled open, belongings scattered across the floor. But that's not the worst of it. On the wall, written in what looks like paint but might be something else, is a message in Old Norse runes. Most of them can't read it, but Elias, who followed them despite appearing to stay behind, translates in a quiet voice. Those who break laws shall be judged. This is someone's sick idea of a game, Henrik says, but his voice wavers. They check the other rooms. 3 of them have been similarly vandalized, each with a message in runes. The messages are variations on a theme: justice, judgment, payment for crimes. Someone is making a point, and making it emphatically. When they return to the conference room, they find Sophia standing at the window, her body rigid with shock. She's staring at something outside, and when they follow her gaze, they see it too. There's a figure standing on the plain, perhaps 200 meters away, barely visible in the darkness, illuminated only by the faint light spilling from the retreat center windows. The figure is wearing what looks like historical clothing, a long cloak and hood, like something from a medieval reenactment. And they're just standing there, motionless, watching the building. Who the hell is that? Thomas whispers. No one answers because no one knows. Magnus tries the door again, thinks about going out there to confront whoever it is, but the locks are still engaged, and even if they weren't, something about that distant figure keeps him frozen in place. There's something wrong about it, something that triggers ancient instincts about predators and danger. They watch for 5 minutes, 10. The figure doesn't move, doesn't even seem to breathe. It's like looking at a statue or a ghost. Finally, Henrik has had enough. He picks up a chair and hurls it at one of the massive windows. The chair bounces off harmlessly. The glass doesn't even crack. Reinforced, Ingrid murmurs, her lawyer's brain cataloging facts. Triple pane, probably bulletproof. This building was designed to keep people in as much as keep people out. The realization settles over them like a shroud. They're not just trapped, they're prisoners. As they stand there processing this, the figure outside finally moves. It raises one arm, points directly at the building, directly at them, and then turns and walks away into the darkness. Within seconds, it's vanished completely, swallowed by the night and the fog. We need to find another way out, Magnus says, but even he sounds uncertain now. They search more systematically this time. Every door is electronically locked and unresponsive. The windows are all reinforced. Even the ventilation system is sealed too tightly for a person to crawl through. Whoever designed this trap knew exactly what they were doing. In the basement, they find something that makes the situation worse. A generator room with the backup power system still running, but also something else. The main power cables have been cut, not with tools, but with something cruder, more brutal. Whoever did this wanted to make sure the power couldn't be easily restored. And next to the cut cables, they find something else. A piece of torn fabric, dark blue, with a distinctive pattern. Ingrid recognizes it immediately. That's from Thomas's jacket, the one he was wearing at dinner. All eyes turn to Thomas, who's gone white. I haven't been down here. I've been with everyone else the whole time. Someone's planting evidence. Or, Astrid says slowly, you cut the power before dinner, planted the evidence about Christian's murder, and now you're trying to cover your tracks. Why would I do that? Thomas demands. What possible motive could I have? Christian wasn't the only one who knew about the algorithm, Magnus says quietly, and there's something in his voice that makes everyone pay attention. There were others. Other programmers, other researchers. Over the past 3 years, 3 of them have died. Car accidents, medical emergencies, suicides, all ruled accidental or natural. But if someone were systematically eliminating everyone who knew the truth about Quantum Leap, you think Thomas has been killing them? Henrik sounds skeptical. Thomas can barely handle conflict in a board meeting. You're saying he's some kind of serial killer. I'm saying that Thomas has always been good at making problems disappear, Magnus replies. That's literally his job. Make bad press vanish. Make critics seem unreliable. Make inconvenient truths look like conspiracy theories. Maybe he got too good at it. Maybe he started making people disappear too. Thomas backs away from the group, his eyes wild. You're all insane. I'm a marketer, not a murderer. I've never hurt anyone in my life. Then explain the photograph, Astrid says. Explain the fabric from your jacket. Explain why you're the one person here who specializes in manipulating reality. Before Thomas can respond, the lights go out again. But this time, they come back on after only a second, flickering like a strobe. In the intermittent flashes of light and darkness, they see something that stops their hearts. The figure from outside is now inside the building. standing at the end of the corridor, that same medieval cloak and hood, that same impossible stillness. In the strobing light, it looks like something from a nightmare, appearing and disappearing, closer each time the light flashes. Everyone runs. Primal fear overriding rational thought. They flee back up the stairs to the main floor, to the conference room where the lights are steady. They slam the door behind them, and Magnus and Henrik drag the heavy stone table in front of it as a barricade. What was that? Sophia is hyperventilating, her earlier composure completely shattered. What the hell was that? Someone trying to scare us, Dr. Lars says, but he doesn't sound convinced. Someone in a costume. A costume that can get through locked doors? Ingrid's voice is sharp with fear. A costume that moves like that? They huddle together in the conference room. 15 of the world's most powerful and intelligent people reduced to frightened children by darkness and fear and guilt. Because guilt is what this is really about, Elias thinks. He's been watching them all turn on each other, watching their carefully constructed facades crumble, and he knows something they don't. He knows that the truth is more complicated than any of them realize. Hours pass. The sun should rise eventually, but in October in Iceland, the night stretches long. They take turns watching the door, watching the windows, watching each other. Trust has completely evaporated. Thomas sits alone in a corner, isolate and accused. Magnus and Astrid maintain a careful distance. Their partnership fractured beyond repair. Henrik keeps checking his phone obsessively, as if signal might magically return. Sophia is praying quietly, her secular worldview unable to cope with the situation they're in. Around 3 in the morning, Ingrid notices something. Where's Dr. Lars? They count heads. 14 people. Dr. Lars Anderson is gone. Panic erupts again. When did he leave? How did no one notice? The stone table is still against the door, undisturbed. Did he leave before they barricaded themselves in? Or is there another way out of the conference room that they missed? They search again, more frantically now, and they find him in one of the vandalized guest rooms, lying on the floor, unconscious but breathing. There's a needle mark on his arm, and next to him is a syringe, empty. Someone drugged him. Sophia, who has first aid training, checks his vitals. His pulse is steady. Whatever he was given, it was probably just a sedative. He should wake up in a few hours. Who did this? Henrik demands. Which one of you attacked him? The question hangs unanswered because the truth is that it could have been any of them. In the chaos and darkness, in the fear and confusion, any of them could have slipped away, could have drugged Dr. Lars, could have returned without being noticed. They carry him back to the conference room, lay him on one of the couches. And that's when Elias decides it's time to reveal the rest of what he knows. This isn't about Christian Sigurdsson, he says quietly. Or rather, it's not only about Christian. This is about all of you and everything you've done. What are you talking about? Astrid demands. Elias walks to the window, looks out at the dark plain where the ancient thing once convened. I told you I'm a historian. That's true, but I'm also something else. I'm Christian's brother. The room goes silent. Elias continues. Christian was 5 years younger than me. Brilliant, idealistic, genuinely believed that technology could make the world better. When he got the job at Quantum Leap, he was so proud. He thought he was going to change the world. And then he discovered what the company really did, what the algorithm really was. He came to me, told me everything, showed me the evidence. And I told him to go public to expose it. I told him he had a moral obligation to reveal the truth. Elias's voice cracks just slightly. 2 days later, he was dead. And I've spent the last 3 years investigating. Not just his death, but all of you. Every person in this group. Every company you represent. And what I found was a web of corruption and criminality that goes so deep, so wide, that I realized the normal mechanisms of justice would never touch you. You're too rich, too connected, too good at manipulating systems. So I decided to create my own justice. You did this, Magnus says slowly. You arranged all of this. You locked us in here. Yes, Elias admits. I did. With help. People you betrayed, people you destroyed, people whose lives your companies ruined. They were eager to assist when I explained what I wanted to do. The building manager who left before you arrived, he lost his retirement savings to Henrik's crypto scam. The caterer who served your dinner, her daughter committed suicide after Quantum Leap's algorithm targeted her with content that exacerbated her depression. The tech consultant who disabled your communications, his startup was stolen and destroyed by predatory practices from Astrid's acquisition team. You've hurt so many people, and none of you even remember them. So what? Thomas asks bitterly. You're going to kill us all? Is that your plan? Murder 15 people and call it justice. No, Elias says. I'm not going to kill anyone. I'm going to give you what you've never had before. Consequences. Real accountability. I have evidence against every person in this room. Evidence of fraud, of manipulation, of crimes both legal and moral. And tomorrow morning, when the park rangers return, they're going to find all of that evidence laid out for them to deliver to the authorities. Your companies will be investigated. Your fortunes will be seized. Your lives, as you know them, will end. You can't do that. Ingrid says, her legal mind already working. Whatever evidence you have, it was probably obtained illegally. It won't stand up in court. Maybe not in criminal court, Elias agrees. But in the court of public opinion, when people see what you've really done, how you've really made your money, your reputations will be destroyed. Your businesses will collapse. Your investors will flee. You'll spend whatever's left of your lives fighting lawsuits and regulatory actions. You might avoid prison, but you won't avoid ruin. You're blackmailing us, Henrik says. Who did this? Henrik demands. Which one of you attacked him? The question hangs unanswered because the truth is that it could have been any of them. In the chaos and darkness, in the fear and confusion, any of them could have slipped away, could have drugged Dr. Lars, could have returned without being noticed. They carry him back to the conference room, lay him on one of the couches. And that's when Elias decides it's time to reveal the rest of what he knows. This isn't about Christian Sigurdsson, he says quietly. Or rather, it's not only about Christian. This is about all of you and everything you've done. What are you talking about? Astrid demands. Elias walks to the window, looks out at the dark plain where the ancient thing once convened. I told you I'm a historian. That's true, but I'm also something else. I'm Christian's brother. The room goes silent. Elias continues. Christian was 5 years younger than me. Brilliant, idealistic, genuinely believed that technology could make the world better. When he got the job at Quantum Leap, he was so proud. He thought he was going to change the world. And then he discovered what the company really did, what the algorithm really was. He came to me, told me everything, showed me the evidence. And I told him to go public to expose it. I told him he had a moral obligation to reveal the truth. Elias's voice cracks just slightly. 2 days later, he was dead. And I've spent the last 3 years investigating. Not just his death, but all of you. Every person in this group. Every company you represent. And what I found was a web of corruption and criminality that goes so deep, so wide, that I realized the normal mechanisms of justice would never touch you. You're too rich, too connected, too good at manipulating systems. So I decided to create my own justice. You did this, Magnus says slowly. You arranged all of this. You locked us in here. The photographs are real, Elias says. But you didn't kill Christian. You were there to warn him, weren't you? Someone had told you about the planned murder, about the hit that had been ordered, and you went to warn Christian to run, to hide. But you were too late. The killer had already been there. Thomas slumps, the fight draining out of him. Yes, he whispers. I tried to warn him. I got there and found his door unlocked, his apartment empty, and I knew something terrible had happened. I heard sirens and ran. I was terrified I'd be blamed. Who told you about the hit? Magnus demands. Who ordered it? I don't know, Thomas says miserably. I got an anonymous message. It just said that Christian was in danger, that someone in the company had decided he was too much of a liability. I went to warn him, but I was too late. You see, Elias says to the group, that's how organizations like yours work. Everyone has partial information. Everyone commits small sins that enable larger ones. You all benefited from Christian's death, so you're all guilty, even if only one person actually pushed him from that balcony. Who was it? Astrid asks quietly. Who actually killed your brother? Elias looks at her for a long moment. You did. The room erupts again, but Astrid just stands there, her composure finally cracking, and Elias can see in her eyes that he's right. Christian trusted you, Elias continues. He came to you first, before he went to the press. He thought you'd listen, thought you'd help him reform the company from within. But you saw him as a threat. You invited him to his apartment, pretended to want to help, and then you killed him. A push from the balcony. Simple, brutal, effective. And you made it look like an accident. You can't prove that, Astrid says, but her voice is hollow. I can. You were careful, but not careful enough. You left DNA on his apartment door frame. A single hair caught on a splinter of wood. The police didn't test it, because they ruled his death accidental, but I kept tabs on the crime scene evidence. That hair is in a sealed evidence bag at the Reykjavik police station, and my lawyer has instructions to request DNA testing if anything happens to me. Your hair, Astrid. Your DNA. Proof that you were there. Astrid sits down slowly, her perfect composure finally shattered. Magnus is staring at her with something between horror and grudging respect. The others just look shocked. Why? Magnus asks quietly. Why didn't you tell me? Because you would have stopped me, Astrid says. You always choose the ethical path when the stakes are low, Magnus. But Christian was going to destroy everything we built, everything we'd worked for. I did what had to be done. You murdered him, Sophia says, her voice shaking. You murdered someone to protect your business. Yes, Astrid says simply. I did, and I'd do it again. You all would, if you're honest with yourselves. You've all made choices that destroyed lives. Mine was just more direct. The confession hangs in the air, and Elias feels a grim satisfaction. This is what he wanted, not just to punish them,